Welcome to the G5 Hive and our next installment of our Worker Bee series, where we deep dive into the G5 college football landscapes with the folks that know the teams the best. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, please rate and review. Today we'll head over to the Mountain West to take a look at the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors, who finished 5-7 last season and wrapped up their 2025 spring practice with their spring game on March 9th. We have a special guest joining us today. He is a sports reporter for Spectrum News Hawaii. He is Brian McInnis. Brian can be found at Brian_McInnis on X. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on again. Going into another fall season that doesn't seem too far away because Hawaii football had its spring practice about as early as anybody in the country.
Well, for those who are just tuning into the G5 Hive for the first time, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you've been covering Hawaii football?
Sure. Well, I've been in my current position with Spectrum News Hawaii for 3 years now. And I'm kind of a all-purpose sports guy for them, which has been great. A lot of fun between college sports, high school sports, and the occasional local athlete who makes it big professionally that we track out here. I have been a full-time sports writer here in Hawaii, where I was born and raised since 2007 at the old Honolulu Star Bulletin newspaper, which became the Star Advertiser newspaper in 2010. So I was with those guys until 2020 when COVID hit. And I was primarily a men's basketball beat writer for the University of Hawaii Rainbow Warriors, covering those guys until most of that time. Been shifted more into a, like I said, a general all-purpose local sports coverage role these last few years.
Well, moving over to the Hawaii football team, how would you describe their offensive style to someone that's maybe never seen a Hawaii game?
Well, Hawaii football, even probably to the casual fan, college football fan, would associate them with the run and shoot offense, right? Going back to those June Jones years from the turn of the century and on. And while it's not exactly the old school run and shoot that they are employing right now, they have one of the all-time statistical leaders running that offense, coaching the program in Timmy Chang, a disciple of June Jones. And the offense has gone through a number of iterations, but they are still calling it the run and shoot. It's a 4 wide, sometimes 5 type of offense. And, that they're going to look to spread you out. They have incorporated some new elements in it, like the occasional tight end, but still a lot of the old run and shoot elements are in there. So that's still their bread and butter, their team identity for sure.
Well, let's start off with a position everyone will be watching here in 2025, the quarterback position. Braden Shager moves on to the NFL draft after graduation, and everyone has their eyes on this young man, Micah Alhado. How did he look in the spring?
Yeah, well, I'll say that, that Braden Shager era, I mean, it was certainly an era, 4 solid years of him being the starter. He set program record for consecutive starts at quarterback. Wish that guy all the best. It was a tough ending to last season for him. He got hurt down the stretch, couldn't finish out his college football career on the field, which I'm sure was very difficult for him. But it opened the door the last game and a half, basically, for Micah Alejado. He had a really solid second half at Utah State when UH was getting blown out by halftime, and strung some passes together, looked really confident in the pocket for the true freshman, coming out of Bishop Gorman High, which, is a prep powerhouse. And Micah is a local boy here. He went to Vegas to play high school football very successfully. They were a national championship contending type of team. So he wasn't a guy who was, afraid of the limelight by any means. He was in some very high leverage, high profile situations. And he looked very comfortable stepping in that Utah State game. And then he got the starting nod for New Mexico at the Clarence T.C. Ching Athletics Complex to close out the season. UH knew it already was out of bowl contention by that point. But it looked like they, just judging on how they played, they made it look like they had a lot to play for. Micah had an outstanding game, almost 500 yards passing, 5 touchdowns passing, no interceptions. Gave the fan base out here, I think, starved fan base, a much needed sign of optimism heading into what will be Timmy Chang's 4th season as head coach.
With Shager graduating and John Chiave Sagapututele transferring, last year we asked you, what did this room look like behind Shager? But now, what does this room look like behind Alejado?
Well, I will say, guys, that Micah certainly looked every part, the bit of a looked and acted like, the leader in the room in spring, which for Hawaii, as I said, they were very early with their spring ball again, wrapped up, around March 9. So we're already a good chunk of time removed from that. But yeah, Micah, he just, was the unquestioned QB1. He made enough throws to certainly justify that, especially in they called it the Warrior Pauhana, their final day of spring of the 15 practices. It wasn't a full-on spring game. They, like a lot of teams in the country, have kind of been going away from that to, I think, shield from potential other programs who would look to get some film on guys and maybe pick them off through NIL or other means. But Micah looked quite solid. He was connecting with the receivers. That they all defer to that guy now. The entire offense does, really. And it's quite remarkable for a guy who has one college football start under his belt to have that kind of respect. They did bring in a couple new guys at the quarterback position. First, they have out of Modesto Junior College, Luke Weaver, who I think has positioned himself to be the possible primary backup for Micah. He was complimented pretty highly by Timmy Chang by the end of the spring there. J.J. Nielsen, who's got some strong family ties with the program through his cousins, formerly played for UH. He's also on the UH baseball team. He's, a freshman guy who got some reps. And the only other quarterback that they had there in the spring was Caleb Freeman, transferred from Mary Hardin Baylor D3 program. So, like I said, it's unquestionably Micah's role now.
One thing that impressed me the most about Micah, and you look at his prep career, is given the volume of passing he did, his interceptions were like non-existent. Like it's to me, it's insane. Like, he just doesn't turn the ball over. Do you think that that part of his game will translate here on the college level?
Well, UH certainly hopes so. He's just got a certain level of poise in the pocket, and I think he's quite rapid with his decision making. If he knows he's got to get out of the pocket and roll out, he does it right away. He can throw on the run very well. A lot of people who make note of his small stature. He's maybe generously listed at 5'9". I can't remember what his official roster listing is, 5'10" perhaps, but which is in some aspects not ideal for a quarterback to see over the O-line and such. But he just, it doesn't seem to bother him. He just very poised, like I said, and Braden Shager put up a lot of numbers, but if there was a criticism, it was that he maybe wasn't the quickest decision maker in there.
Well, let's move over to the Rainbow Warriors running game, and they didn't get a lot of production out of that running back room last season. They do look to have some depth heading into 2025. Last season, the running backs rushed for a combined 678 yards on 152 attempts between Landon Sims, Cameron Barfield, Christian Vaughn, and David Cordero. They have about 660 combined rushing yards and 148 attempts returning in 2025. Do you think the running back position gets used more here in 25?
That certainly was a big talking point in the spring, guys. They were trying to, it was pretty obvious in that Warrior Pauhana game, get those running backs established, whether it's now Luke Sims, I would say, make note of, was hurt during the spring, so we didn't get to see him. But other guys like Barfield, like Cordero, Christian Vaughn, they were getting a lot of handoffs. Whether that was, UH trying to manage the health of the quarterbacks, not make their load too heavy, I don't know, but it certainly, like I said, was a talking point, getting the running game more established. It's honestly been a talking point these last 2 years. it's, I think, fallen short of being a true kind of counterweight to the passing heavy Hawaii offense. I don't think many opponents really truly have had to respect the UH run game. A lot of times the best option on the run was Braden Shager taking off with it, and he got quite good at it by the end of his career. So if they can get, whether it's Landon Sims getting back healthy or by committee some of those other guys, something going, I will say they do have a new offensive coordinator in Anthony Arsenault. He is the running backs coach. If he can maybe lean into those guys a little more, I think that would only benefit the Bows.
Was there a particular running back that stood out to you this spring?
I wouldn't say any one guy stood out. I would say Cordero and Barfield probably got a lot of the looks, though.
The wide receiver room is losing 27% of their receiving yardage from a year ago, but guys like Crowdis, Cynical, and leading receiver from a year ago, Ashlock, they return. They also brought in Jackson Harris from Stanford and Braden White from Kentucky. How did this room look in the spring?
Yeah, no, I would say it's an absolute point of strength for this team, which is kind of what you want if you're Hawaii and in an offense like the run and shoot guys. It was huge for him, first of all, getting Nick Senecal and Dekel Crowdis back out of the portal. Those guys realized just for their numbers, productivity, based on the solid seasons they had in 2024, they decided it would be just, the logical thing for their long-term football prospects to try to put up even bigger numbers in 2025. And I know, Jared Ursua, the wide receivers coach, was certainly grateful for that, and Timmy Chang as well. So when you're talking about those two guys, plus Nick Senecal, who really broke out, especially in the second half of last season, and Pofele Ashlock, he did get some banged up. He had to sit out some games with, head contact late in the season. So he wasn't quite himself, but he is still a true number one kind of option. And then when you had a guy like Jackson Harris, I mean, he had an outstanding couple of grabs to cap off the spring, and he's going to be going up against his former team Stanford right off the bat on August 23rd, week 0 game. So, Brandon White, you guys mentioned coming in out of Kentucky. He's kind of in a similar mold as Dekel Crowdis, as deep ball threats, true speedsters. And then several role players behind him who I think could step forward. Guys, local boy like Tama Uiliata, and then two guys they signed after last season, Titan Lockett-in and Kai Carvalho out of Kahuku, and Titan Lockett-in from St. Louis, two of the most prominent high school programs here. Could be true underrated guys to bolster the room, I think, by the time this next season is said and done.
Well, Ashlock seems to be a lock to be the number one maybe target getter here in 2025. How do you think the rest of the room shakes out in terms of maybe options for Alejado?
Yeah, I think Senecal's a strong number 2. We'll see if Jackson Harris can become elevate to being one of their main options. I'm not sure, to be honest with you, if that's in the cards, but I think it's certainly a possibility. And then, like I said, when you guys got guys like Brandon White and Crowdis as deep ball threats, I mean, that's basically post routes is how they used Crowdis for, I think, 4 touchdowns last year, and I think they were all on post route kind of situations. They were lacking some of that in Timmy Chang's first couple years. Some of those true deep ball threat pass catchers. So, like I just said, guys, I think this position group will be their strongest or one of their strongest going into next season.
Well, you kind of briefly touched on it earlier, but if you were to describe how the tight ends are utilized in this offense to someone that has not seen a Hawaii game, how would you do that?
I would still say they're not utilized nearly as much as your average offense in college football. They are out there from time to time. I know you guys had flagged Oki Salavea as maybe a guy who could have a role this year, and that's certainly possible. I think he only caught 1 pass this past season. So the tight ends, a lot of times, they are used for blocking. There a few years ago, I remember writing a story about, is this the year that Hawaii football is going to have a first team all conference type of tight end because it had never happened. And the guy that I highlighted actually didn't get it. And another tight end got first team all Mountain West. So I was wrong and right a little bit at the same time. But since then, I don't think they've had quite the level of impact, but they will go into those 11 personnel type of situations from time to time.
Well, in order to allow Alejado to check it around, we need to talk about those guys up front in the trenches. Hawaii lost some depth with right guard Kou Peope due to graduation, and lost left tackle Comenda de Cambra to Arizona. How did this offensive line shape up and look in the spring practice?
It's a great question. We did not see much of the offensive line in spring. They had some key injuries, and they did a lot of kind of 7-on-7 stuff also. So the O-line were off doing their own thing a lot of the time. But I will say that Pehopa, he's still on the summer roster. I think maybe they found another year of eligibility for that guy. So he's still listed at least. We'll see if they can, run him out there one more time. In college football these days, guys, I never take anything for sure anymore. It's so fluid. And by the way, I should say thank you for bringing me on during the transfer portal window when so much can change at a moment's notice and make me look like an idiot. So I appreciate it, guys.
Well, it's hard to put the show sheet together with everything because we try to get them out a week ahead of time, sometimes 2 weeks, and then we have to change everything because so-and-so is no longer there. We use statistics, and now the math doesn't add up.
Right. Well, I will say they did have some other meaningful offensive line losses, guys like Sergio Muasau, Maurice Ta'ala, Luke Felix Fualalo, Christian Perry were guys who were in the starting rotation or backup rotation that they lost. They did sign some guys, KJ Hallums, Uluaki Tauki Uvea, and Jordan Kernahan are three guys they signed for the O-line this past signing period. So, like I said, we didn't get to see a lot of those guys. That to me is one of the kind of big question mark position groups going into the fall.
Who do you think has the inside path in to start there at left tackle?
Yeah, I think left tackle, if I call up who they listed in the past, Dean Brisky, I think you guys had flagged as a possibility. That's as good a guess as anybody in my book right now. He did back up kind of DeCambra at the position last year.
If you had to pick an offensive player to have a breakout type season in 2025, who would that be?
I think, like I mentioned, guys, Nick Senecal at receiver had a very strong back half of last season. And if I were to, project one guy right now, I mean, who's a well-liked guy, hardworking guy, team, like I said, very happy to have him back out of the transfer portal. I think that guy will only continue to get better. So if I had to single out one guy, he would be my pick. The Canadian from Montreal, from Quebec, Nick Senecal.
So let's move over to the defensive side of the ball. And for those not familiar with Hawaii's defense, can you describe the style and the scheme that they run out there?
Sure. Well, I would call it unpredictable, I guess, would be the way they like to do it without like any given set formation under Dennis Thurman. He's entering his second year as the defensive coordinator, a guy with a ton of NFL experience, was actually inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame after last season. And, been around the block. I don't know how many more years he intends to do this, but UH football is certainly glad to have Dennis Thurman while they have him. And he, like I said, he's a guy who likes to keep offenses guessing, really, how UH is going to come at him. He's a very cagey guy with the media. It's hard to pin him down on any game plan or anything specific at all. Like if you were just to approach him randomly after a practice, he might deny that they're playing the game of football. Like you just never can pin him down for much. But 4-2-5, it would be something that you would see fairly often. I think they do like using the nickelback. and just a couple of linebackers a lot of times. So it's just kind of remarkable how many of the defensive players really, seem to revere Dennis Thurman and how he kind of has taken command of this side of the ball. They are losing an all Mountain West defensive back in Cam Stone, first team defensive back, which, UH hasn't had a whole ton of first team guys. And he graded out as one of the elite DBs, cornerbacks in the country. I think he was number 3 by one metric as a DB. So they will certainly miss that guy, but I know Dennis Thurman's going to have some tricks up his sleeve.
Well, let's talk about the guys up front along that defensive line. In terms of returning production in this room, the edges look to be deep in comparison to the interior. Between the portal and graduation, the interior line lost 11 of their team total 42 sacks from a year ago. How did the defensive line look in the spring, and did anyone stand out?
I guess there's a big question that's still, to my knowledge, at least waiting to be answered as far as the eligibility of Elijah Robinson, who was named their team defensive MVP. He's, I think, going to be going, if they get him back, if the waiver is granted, into his 8th year of college football, which I realize is not unprecedented anymore in this day and age, right, guys? I mean, you guys have probably seen a handful of those guys when you're going team by team these days. But if they get him back, that would be huge for sure. They did pick up a couple of FBS transfers in Dejon Benton from New Mexico, Luther McCoy out of Minnesota. But they do have some meaningful, returning experience in guys like Tariq Jones, Jackie Johnson III, Wyndon Ho'ohuli, Ka'eo Akana coming in from Utah. So I think they're reasonably stocked there. I did a feature story on Heo de la Cruz, who they're kind of bringing up as a young D end. And Jordan Pooh Robinson, the position coach, told me, like, hey, it's just going to be a matter of waiting his turn, because they do have a lot of senior experienced guys at on the D line. So I don't think that's a position of concern for these guys. It's just a matter of how those position battles are going to shake out.
Assuming Elijah's waiver gets approved, who would you expect to kind of see out there snap one versus Stanford?
That's a good question. Let me see what I jotted down, guys. 1 second. So, like we pointed out, Elijah Robinson is up in the air. Tariq Jones, I would expect to be available. They no longer have Malachi Finau. They no longer have Daniel Sauce Williams. So it's going to be a matter of maybe some of those D1 guys that I mentioned coming in and filling an instant role. But Jackie Johnson III, I think, is a local boy that they're pleased with him, and some combination of Ho'ohuli and Akana. I would be my best guess.
The linebacking group lost Nalu Emerson to graduation, but brings back a strong group, the likes of Logan Taylor, Jalen Smith, and Jumai Otis. How did this group look in the spring?
Yeah, well, Logan Taylor is another one of those guys we're waiting on waiver confirmation for, which would be another pretty remarkable situation, based on past junior college experience, whether they're able to get another year back for a guy like him, who's one of the spiritual leaders of the team. If they are able to get Logan Taylor back, that would be huge. But independent of that, between Jalen Smith and Jumai Otis, and Otis being a true rising team leader, I think they're pretty well positioned there at linebacker. They did sign a couple guys as well during this past period, but with those guys at the top of the depth chart, I think they'd feel pretty good in what they call the Lions Den under the associate head coach, Chris Brown, who's the linebackers coach.
So you talked earlier about the defensive backfield taking that hit, losing Cam Stone. They also lose Justin Sinclair. Right. Stone led the team in tackles and interceptions. And despite those losses, they still return a lot of guys with game experience, the likes of Elijah Palmer, Kilinahi, Mendiola Jensen, Peter Manuma, and Caleb Brown. How did that unit look in the spring? Was anyone kind of standing out for you?
Yeah, so with the loss of Cam Stone, Justin Sinclair, like you said, cornerback was a true targeted area during their signing period. They did sign 3 cornerbacks out of 14 guys in that class. Xavier Fairley, TJ Jones, Elijah Gibson being the new cornerbacks. I will say they're getting a lift, and it was really good to see him back out there in Verdell Edwards II. He had to redshirt the previous year due to injury. He was an impactful FBS Power Conference transfer when he came in a couple years ago. I think they're hoping for big things out of Verdell for what I believe will be his final year of college football. But then again, these days you can never be certain. So, Devin King, experienced guy at corner. I think they got one more year from him. And then at safety, I mean, Peter Manuma is a true, on-field emotional leader of this defense as well, along with a guy like Logan Taylor and Jemai Otis. So the defense has a strong, I would say, class of leaders, kind of at each part of the really, each position group. And Manuma, it was big for him to, I think, stay home because he had the pedigree and he had the stats to justify, taking some NIL money to go elsewhere if he had so chosen. They brought in also Juju Smith. He's the younger brother of Jalen Smith at safety, and Kona Moore, Keely Nahi, Mendiola Jensen, like you said, are guys who are going to be in the mix there. They feel really good about Elijah Palmer at nickelback. He's really kind of held down that position the last couple of years, basically from when he came in as a true freshman out of Bishop Gorman. And I think Matangi Thompson is kind of the backup at nickel. But, I think aside from corner, that was the main concern. And overall, with the DBs, they're not too shabby.
Is there any defensive back in that secondary needs to step up in particular, you think, for this group to be successful in 2025?
Well, like I said, Palmer, he's done a very good job at nickel, and he looked like he had a huge spring too. I think he had 2 picks in that Warrior Pauhana day when they weren't going full contact, but it was still a really nice showing from Elijah. So if he can become, along with Manuma, that kind of co-leader of the defense, I think they're going to be all right.
All right, if you had to pick a defensive player to have a breakout type season in 2025, who'd that be?
I really like Jemai Otis as a guy who has had a lot of playing time at linebacker, not always as a starter, but he's really kind of coming into his own, I think. He's another Bishop Gorman guy. They've had more than a few of them. That the Chris Brown connection, the linebackers coach, he was the former DC at Bishop Gorman. That's kind of why they've been able to get these guys. And I just think Jemai has all the right attributes of a guy who can make an impact on the field, is respected by his teammates, and he's kind of got some years under his belt now. So I look to that guy to kind of continue to get better and make a name for himself.
Well, we've talked some offense and some defense, but how about some special teams now? How are those units looking? Are there any concerns with any of them?
Yeah, I would say for sure. Lucas Barrow was, during the team struggles last year, was the bright spot at times in some games. That dude would just put, coffin corner, like it's seemingly on a moment's notice. He could just pin it. And I think he had better than a 45-yard punting average on the season, which was almost at the top of the Mountain West, and I think top 10 in the country, if I'm not mistaken. I can tell you for sure in a second. He was number 7 nationally, better than 45 yards per punt. Now, they did also lose Ben Falk and Lucas Barrow. I think he was holding out for a year of eligibility. I think that didn't happen after the spring, so he's gone the pro route. And I'm sure that UH wishes him all the best. He was an awesome pickup for them. So punter is an open question right now. I think Kansei Matsuzawa as the kicker, they gained a lot of confidence in him as last season went along. He was a self-taught guy, really kind of cool story from Japan. Used YouTube videos to kind of teach himself the art of place kicking. And I think they were hesitant to use him in the first half of the season, but like I said, by the end, he was out there, attempting from 40 plus and came through for them in some big spots. So I believe they do have Kansei back at kicker. Now, Tylen Hines is a guy they did lose to the portal after last year, who he was hurt for the last a lot of his first 2 years in the program, but when he was healthy, I mean, especially his true freshman year, that guy looked, he was a very dynamic backfield option at running back. And he kind of became a little bit hybrid receiver running back. And he never had quite the same impact as he did his true freshman year, but he was still one of their main return guys. And so they no longer have the services of Tylen Hines. He went to Tarleton State, I believe. So the return man position, punt return and kick return, that's something to watch come the fall.
Now that the spring practice is over, which position group or groups do you think is the most concerning heading into 2025?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really kind of curious to see the O-line, how that shapes up come fall. Like I mentioned earlier in the conversation, it was just kind of tough to get a read on that position group in the spring. And just with, some of the offseason attrition, really curious to see how that shapes up, because for the run and shoot to work, I mean, the O-line has to give Micah Alejado or whoever's back there, a decent amount of time to throw, even with Micah's ability to roll out pretty quickly. Like I said, throw on the run, make a quick decision. There were times when Braden Shager took quite a lot of damage in the last couple of years in the pocket when he didn't have the level of protection he needed. I think mid-season last year, chose to call out the O-line for the lack of protection. And I think by the end of the year, things did improve, but that, to answer your question, I think that's a position group that will merit notice for sure.
How does Hawaii go about addressing those? Is it rotating more players in, or is it addressing them through the portal?
I mean, UH has been able to pull guys through the portal. They have had, unfortunately for them, a history of being victimized through the portal, especially when, just a few years ago when Timmy Chang came in, the end of the Todd Graham era, there were a ton of notable defections out. They lost quite a lot of the talent that they would have had. So, the portal can be a fickle thing, as we all know. But I think they've done a decent job of late of finding guys who can help them out of there. UH is not a program, even compared to its Mountain West peers, that has a lot of NIL to play with. They really kind of have to make that count. I think they were able to help Micah Alejado in some ways, which, and make sure he stays home after his outstanding showing to end last year. So I believe they took care of that. But all overall, they're not a team that's going to be able to go dollar for dollar with, certainly like the likes of UNLV, who's positioned to be a power in the new look Mountain West. Now that those five programs like Colorado State, Boise State, San Diego State, Fresno State, and Utah State, I believe, are the five. When they go to the new look Pac-12 after this season, we'll see what kind of position Hawaii finds itself in the pecking order, because they've really kind of struggled to be in that top half of the conference, with the exception of maybe one or two seasons.
In today's age of NIL, revenue sharing, and the portal, how have you seen that change Hawaii's recruiting philosophy?
I mean, I think everybody's had to, roll with it as best they can. It's changed the sport, as you guys know, so incredibly. And maybe incredibly is the wrong word, because there are a lot of, I think, downsides to how it's changed. But even things as slight, or maybe seemingly slight, as not having like a spring game. Like not wanting to get tape on your guys so that other programs can more easily identify talent and come in and swoop and pick them up. I just think Hawaii has to pick its spots, and they are still in a very transitional time in program history with the Clarence T.C. Ching Athletics Complex as their home on campus. 15,000 capacity. They can fill that thing up. It doesn't have a lot of the bells and whistles of a full stadium. UH has made the best it can of a tough situation with Aloha Stadium shut down. They're still targeting the 2028 season for a new stadium. There's a lot that has to happen between now and then. They have to finalize a contract on the new stadium. That could happen this summer. And then demolition on the old stadium has to begin. So they're operating on a very tight timetable just to make 2028. So there's a lot of things other programs can kind of use against UH in head-to-head recruiting battles. right now, but Timmy Chang, I think, has done the best he can in a tough situation to assemble talent, whether it's local guys convincing them to stay home. I think getting a guy like Kai Carvalho, who committed to Utah, but I believe he went on a church mission, and now they're getting him on the other side of that. A true local talent, despite his small stature, is a great example. A guy like Titan Lockett, who just won an Open Division state championship. Two very dynamic playmakers that we could see sooner rather than later, I think is one example of a victory for those guys.
What do you think is the main strength of this 2025 team?
I would think if they're going to have success, it's going to be the connection between Alejandro and his receiving core. I think he's got the weapons necessary to have a truly explosive offensive season. If Nick Senecal, Pofele Ashlock, guys like Jackson Harris are all firing at the same time, they could be one of the best offenses in the Mountain West.
What does success look like for the Rainbow Warriors in 2025?
I would say a winning season and a bowl appearance. That's what everyone's been waiting for out here. This past year, 2024, was kind of considered a bit of a make or break season for Timmy Chang and the guys in that regard, because they had yet to make a bowl game. They did fall short, 5-7. Haven't appeared in the Hawaii Bowl for quite some time, and they did give gave Timmy Chang a 1-year rollover under acting athletic director Lois Mannon. So Timmy's still got a couple years to play with, but they got to make a bowl game. I think that's a benchmark that is an expectation, and especially going on 3+ years for a head coach in the program. And it's not the easiest schedule. It wasn't last year, and I don't think it is again this year. But that will be what I think a lot of people are looking out for.
Anything else that you would like to share or think that we should know about this 2025 Hawaii football team?
Yeah, I think it's looking like it's honestly going to be the Micah Alejandro show. If he can replicate what he did at the very tail end of last year, got the fan base buzzing, local boy making good. There's not too many storylines that could be better than that for this program right now. Just given its limitations, if they can find a way to break out this year, that would get people, I think, truly excited about Rainbow Warrior football again.
Well, Brian, thank you for taking some time out of your day to spend with us and share your knowledge. We greatly appreciate it.
No, it was fun, guys. Appreciate you having me on.
All right. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, please rate and review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Thank you all for your support. Until the next time, we are the G5 Hive.